All right. So I believe everyone's here already. So let's just,
Yeah.
yeah, start right away, shall we? All right. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to another event of our Blockchain Crypto Club Introduction to Multichain Network. My name is Edward, and I'm going to be the moderator for tonight's event. Now, maybe some of you guys in the audience may thought this way. Oh, this guy's face seems pretty familiar. I've seen this guy's face before. Well, then, if that's the case, I'm flattered because that means you're also joined our previous NFT event. But for tonight, I've also joined by my new fellow friend here. Hey, I mean, right here. Yes, yes, this guy right here on my
Yeah.
left side.
I
Yeah,
yeah.
his name is Yuzis, and we both are going to be the moderators for tonight's event. Now, before we jump into the main session, I would like to first say a big thank you to all our community members, as well as the people of APU's team. We have worked together to prepare and manage this event all together. And of course, most importantly, I would like to say a huge, massive thank you to Mr. Aaron Ting, who have spending the time to come here to share about his knowledge and his experience and his insight about the multi-chain network. And of course, we also don't forget about you guys. We also highly appreciate all the audience who have come to next event as well. Now, uh, all right. So now, before we jump into the main session, I would like to first brief all of you about the agenda and the the agenda and the rundown for tonight's event. Yeah, as you can see right there on the screen. Sorry for the slight delay right there, but it should be okay now. Yes, so as right there in the screen, right after this, we're just going to go straight into the sharing session by Mr. Aaron Ting. And after that, we also gonna have 5 minutes short breaks in between. And not long after that, we're also going to be doing an AMA sessions, which is an Ask Me Anything session. So by that time, please everyone, feel free to drop any questions you have during either Facebook or YouTube live chat, and we're going to answer that. And last but not least, we also have a membership and feedback section where we will encourage all the audience to fill up the feedback form, as well for APU students to fill up the membership form for those who are interested in joining our blockchain and crypto club. Now, my next point here is very important, so please listen carefully. For APU students only, you're only able to obtain the certificates for this event by filling through the feedback form. So yeah, please make sure to stick through until the end of the event because we also have, boom, boom, surprise, special airdrop. All right. A total of 200 USDT will be given to the best 10 questions asked by APU students, which means that each student will receive 20 USDT. Now, we are not going to announce the winners in this tonight's event, but we will announce it right after the event ends. So by latest, we will probably get back to the winners by tomorrow or the day after maybe. But make sure to keep looking forward to it. All right. So that is all from me. Now I'm going to pass on to my fellow moderator Yudis to continue.
Thank you, Edward, for that. So before we start the talk session, I will briefly introduce our speaker of the night. Mr. Aaron Ting is the head of marketing of Octopus Network, which is a multi-chain crypto network built on Near protocol that is used to launch and run Web3 application-specific blockchains called app chains. He is a seasoned consultant skilled in the conceptualization and structuring of crypto and blockchain projects backed by experience in sales, marketing, business development, branding, PR, and community management within the blockchain and traditional industry. Mr. Aaron Ting also co-founded ACCESS Malaysia and served a few projects including major crypto such as privacy coins, wallets, spots, and derivative exchanges. Now, he is going to give us a talk in diving deeper into the fundamental aspects of Web 3.0 and how Octopus Network is being integrated into it. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Aaron Ting. Okay.
No. Uh, Excuse me, Mr. Aaron. You're
Oh,
muted, sir.
okay. Hi. Okay. Sorry,
Sorry,
everyone.
sir.
Hi, I'm Aaron. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, everyone. And I started in crypto 9 years ago by purchasing a miner. It was one of the first ASIC miner in the world, and it's been a very interesting journey because I'm originally from the oil and gas industry, and for the first few years, I was involved in crypto projects. I was involved in setting up the association, but mainly, I was doing it as more of a hobby than a real job. So somehow I now focus my time exclusively on cryptocurrency and also blockchain technology, and and this is a very exciting time, and I'm going to share with you why. And also understand that, of course, many of you are students, and you are thinking about where what you're interested to do in life, after you graduate. So there are opportunities within the Web3 world, and these opportunities are actually quite abundant. There's so many ways that you can get involved now, and even I can say that most of the jobs, even a very simple job, can actually earn you more than minimum wage in Malaysia. And there are also a lot of people that's actually working in Web3 while they are still students. You know, and but of course, it's quite important to note that you shouldn't be distracted from your studies. Under any means. So let's start. So this is me. I'll skip over this part. I've done the intro. Now, before we dive into multi-chain network, which is like a word that is quite complex, right? It conveys complexity. I think what we need to do is actually take a step back and look at what exactly is happening in the world. You know, so during many points in human history, we have sort of technologies or philosophies that basically change the world, right? And that change affects every single part of our lives, right? And especially when that change is a form of governance, right? So blockchain technology enables a lot of things, right? Blockchain technology in itself, I would say, is within the realm of the internet. Some people say is the next iteration of the internet, and I believe that is true. But in itself, it is just a technology. But what it enables, this is the exciting part. So of course, we started with Bitcoin after the financial crisis, and the real problem that Bitcoin solved was actually to have a cryptocurrency that is decentralized and secure, and which means that before this there was other cryptocurrencies, except that a lot of these cryptocurrencies fell, and they weren't really mentioned. But the future is becoming more and more clear that the future is going to be decentralized, and that the ability, with blockchain, now the internet has the ability to transfer value without any intermediary. That trust is instead of trusting people or financial institution, you're trusting a set of basically a protocol and a group of people to basically run a consensus and secure it. So that actually is a revolution by itself. And of course, there's many words that you may have heard. Obviously, you probably have heard of Bitcoin, blockchain, Ethereum, the Internet of Value, decentralized governance, very exciting, and also Polkadot, which is one of the famous multi-chain network. And our project is somewhat related to that. So let me go in to the next slide. So this is the evolution of the internet. So as you can see, we have Web 1.0, which is very simple, like HTML emails, kind of like, yeah, if you were if you had a computer and an internet connection at that time, actually it was quite exciting, but certainly it wasn't something that a lot of people know about. And some people use it for jobs, and for those like us, I was yeah, I had my first computer, which is 386. It was quite an exciting time, but things were very slow, and there's really limited things that you can do. And now we're at this so-called Web 2.0. So Web 2.0 is a lot more interactive, informative. Like, you get YouTube channels, you get, like, so many different types of media, and that has exploded, right? Now, the whole thing about Web 2.0 is that essentially, no one found anything wrong with Web 2.0 until the point where we start to realize that, hey, like a lot of the services that we use, even though it's free of charge, there's actually a cost to it. So, for example, if you use social media like Facebook, they're actually collecting your data, and they're actually monetizing your data, right? And it gets a little bit crazy because it's not about just monetizing your data. They actually go one step beyond that, and essentially they can control like what you see, the kind of news that you see. And there's been some evidence that there has been experiments where they try to I would say manipulate someone into kind of like a line of thinking or adopting certain thoughts, just by showing people certain things, and people tend to believe what they read. I mean, there are skeptical people, but that's a little bit too much power being put in the hands of huge corporations. Some of them are much bigger than even nation states. If you want to look at just a GDP comparison with the valuation of these companies, so it's becoming a little bit I would say extreme. So we're putting so much power into like this Web 2.0 giants, but we still all use it. And end of the day, you and me, we're gonna use whatever service that is easy and convenient to use and cost the least to us, right? So what is Web 3.0? So Web 3.0 is a web where the idea of these huge entities controlling huge amounts of data, it's becomes optional, right? That means we can actually have a decentralized system where you and me, instead of putting our data on Facebook, we can actually control our own data, right? And that is through a use of something very simple, such as a crypto wallet where we can keep our private keys, and that's the whole thing, so it's like, hey, now you're controlling your data. And when you're controlling your data, it also means that if someone is monetizing your data, you should know about it, and you should also get full value of how do you say, of your data, right? So for me, it's very exciting because for me, I think that everybody generates data, because we're on mobiles all the time, and if you're work or study, or leisure time, like you have a PC, you spend time on it. There's so much value that you're putting out there, and if we can capture just even a fraction of that value and give it back to us, I mean, I think that's the solution for even very big ideas such as a universal basic income. So as we all know, right now the world is in a stage where it's almost like an alternate universe. Like if you watch Marvel movies, like, yeah, the world is in a very strange place because we have the pandemic. Now we have the Russian Ukraine war, and it's destabilizing Europe. So we're moving into a period of very high uncertainty, right? From geopolitics to like economics, and when it affects economics, then end of the day, it affects you and me as a person. I mean, we do not want to be in a position where we are sort of victims of the circumstance. So now there's a technology that can actually say that can actually offer us that option. So if you can imagine, someone in Ukraine just said like, "Hey, I lost everything because my bank account stopped working. I have properties in Ukraine, but it's probably not going to be my property anymore if it's ever taken over by some other country. But I do have some crypto, some Bitcoin, some digital assets in my wallet. So it's all that I have. So at the very worst, for people who don't believe this, I think that digital asset is something that is very interesting, because previously, if a war situation happened, you will keep it in gold, but now you have the option of keeping it in digital asset, and digital asset can be created. So that's how powerful it is, and that's what I want you guys to understand. So these are some of the Web 2.0 platforms. You probably know them: Facebook, Airbnb, so on and so forth. Now, every single one of these platform can actually how do you say, yeah, we can actually come up with a decentralized form of it. The problem with a decentralized form of it is, I think, usability, and a lot of that has to do with the performance of the underlying layer of blockchain, which means that we may not have the infrastructure that is ready up until this point. But from this point onwards, I believe that we do have all the Lego pieces, put together, where we can actually build Web3 to a reasonable level. And the reasonable level would be the experience of Web 2. So this is what we always talk about. If Web 3 is going to be popular, it's got to be like as usable as Web 2, because nobody wants to jump through hoops to extra hoops to do things. So these are like the Web 3. So there are some representation already. So as you can see here, a very obvious one is the Brave browser, which is derived from Chrome. Okay, and then you have a storage as well. Instead of Google Drive, you can do IPFS or storage. There are other examples that I won't really go into, but you can basically find this now that you know about it. So what are the key drivers for Web 3.0? So for those of you who's like not so technical, I would actually have a simpler explanation for all of this. But basically, the previous approach for applications is to be built on a single blockchain. So, for example, you guys probably know Ethereum by now. So, Ethereum is sort of like the first Turing complete smart contract platform. So, people built apps on it, but Ethereum is slow because it wasn't designed to really scale, right? So, I mean, they didn't expect it to scale at the rate which is scaled at. That's the other issue. But there's a lot of the apps on Ethereum, and it's very congested. And the way it works is that the more congested it is, the higher the fees. So if you have heard of $100 fees for doing a swap, it's totally real. Okay. Now, we think that the solution is not really to have the apps to have everything on one blockchain. We think that solution is actually to have each application to have their own blockchain. Now, there's a very easy way to do that now. The other way is the other big issue is what if everyone has their own blockchain? Then you have the issue of connectivity. How are they going to connect to each other? How are they going to transfer value to each other? Can they even do something crazy like triggering a smart contract? Again, now the apps, the other enablers, right, is something called Substrate, which is invented by Parity, known for the Polkadot project. So with Substrate, it's so much easier to launch your own blockchain instead of spending 2 years on your own consensus. Now you can have it in like literally a couple of days or even 40 minutes if you just want a simple version on the testnet. That's how powerful it is. And when you talk about decentralized ecosystem, one of the very core components is decentralized governance. And decentralized governance, I see this as a precursor for something called electronic democracy. So I play a lot of Civilization. If some of you may know, it's a PC game, and inside the Civilization, you have this evolution of governance, right? So there's one term that I actually like, and it's like electronic democracy. So call it what you want, but can you imagine that we have a system where we don't need to elect politicians like we do today into ministerial positions, and these guys have all the say. They decide who to award the contract to. They want to award the contract to their friends. They can do it. Maybe there's some procedure, but in essence, they have enough influence to make it happen for their friends. So that's why there's like a lot of corruptions that goes on, and I think Malaysia is one of the worst countries in the world when it comes to corruption. So can you imagine that? Hey, we don't even need people, right? All these politicians, we can just come up, pre-program like governance, right? That is decentralized, where everyone can verify what's going on. Yeah, that is an actual possibility. It's not something that a lot of politicians want to hear, but essentially that is what is possible. So we are moving from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0. So instead of a centralized company owned, it can be government. We're moving the community owned internet platform. So now this is the difference. So I was talking about Ethereum and how you can build as an application on top of Ethereum. So when you do that, all you can do is operate on the smart contract layer. Okay. Now, when you have your own blockchain, you can have like control over everything. So it's app logic, runtime, consensus protocol, governance. So so it's so much more powerful to have your own blockchain. It's almost like saying, why should you build on Ethereum if you can have your own Ethereum, more or less. Also, the other important thing is the governance. Now, the governance on Ethereum is not ideal because essentially people vote with tokens, but then somebody has to execute the change, right? And normally this is perhaps one person, one programmer. So actually, when he's taking the consensus of the entire community, but he's the only one applying it. If you have a substrate chain, it's going to be very different. Like the code has to be prepared beforehand. It has to be approved by a technical committee, and the community would be able to see what is going to be rolled out. And the moment they vote yes, that code will be pushed out. So that's how fantastic it is. Um, Now, what is Octopus Network? So we spoke a lot about the whole decentralization thing, and what the next generation of internet is going to look like. We talk about sort of like, hey, you should have your own blockchain instead of just an application. So now we're going to talk about what exactly is Octopus, right? Which is the project that I work for. So Octopus is a like yeah, by definition, decentralized protocol that allows developers to build and launch application-specific blockchains. Using substrate and transfer messages and value trustlessly. So it's a very long um, paragraph or sentence, but I just want to put it in a very simple manner, non-technical manner where everyone can understand. So if you imagine that Ethereum is, let's say, New York City. So if you want to put everything in New York City, it doesn't may not really make sense, right? Because if you want to put car manufacturing in New York City, it doesn't work because New York City is a financial hub. There's a lot of money going through New York. People are generally highly paid. The place is generally wealthy. So everything it's got to cost more. If it doesn't, then you run in a situation where New York City isn't exactly livable anymore, right? Because it's just so congested, right? So so um so instead of building everything on New York City, why don't we have other cities? Like for example, Detroit is a motor city, you know, or we have uh, Hollywood or something, which is more entertainment. We have more like Colorado. Like yeah, if you want to do a ski resort kind of thing, or you want to hang out on the beach, you go to Miami. If you're in oil and gas, you're kind of like, hey, you're in Texas. So instead of putting everything in the financial center, what we do is we build different cities, and we're okay with that because now we have a very easy way to connect. So the architecture of Octopus is as simple as saying that you know uh, we are a protocol that uses a very fantastic layer one called Near Protocol. So Near Protocol is so easy to use. It's like the at this for the last 6 months, it's been the only blockchain where I say like, hey, if you want to get in crypto, like open a wallet, please open a Near Protocol wallet because it's so easy. It's like signing up for an email, and they even send like the seed word to you don't have to write it down or anything. Like if you want, it's less secure, but you can get the seed word sent to your email. So it's so easy to open, right? Why I push people towards that direction is because it saves me a lot of time. Like if I ask them to do MetaMask and I have to add them, get them to basically, add BSC or something or add Polygon or something, and it gets a little bit confusing and it takes up too much time. So not only Near Protocol is one of those very fast, highly scalable layer one, but they're also very easy to use. And so our New York City is Near Protocol, and Octopus Network is not a blockchain. We are a service that provides connectivity between substrate chains that wants to connect to Near Protocol. So if you want to put it another way, we're the infrastructure builders for the new Web 3.0 or for the new internet. Okay. Now there's two other protocols that we're going to talk about, and you've have to understand the difference between them to understand what value Octopus is giving. But yeah, this is essentially the architecture of Octopus. I won't go too deep again. So yeah, so this slide is about why you should have an app chain. Why should you have your own chain? over building like your own D app on other people's chain. Uh, so, for example, performance, right? So, if you're on other people's chain, you sort of have to share the bandwidth with everyone. You cannot customize. You can only operate at a virtual machine layer. You cannot customize. It takes a very long time to also push out proposal, so you can evolve quickly. There's governance on chain under substrate, so you can actually have a full on decentralized governance. And nowadays, the cost has gotten so low that it's actually quite similar to basically deploy this chain. Meaning that even though Rust and Substrate developers are still relatively a small community, but there are people that's providing the service to get your own chain up and running. And once these chains are up, they also our chain also support EVM, which is Ethereum Virtual Machine. And this is really cool because it's saying that, hey, if you're an Ethereum D app, then you don't really need to do that much work to get your own chain. All you need to do is use the existing smart contract and sort of port it over, right? At least for a start, right? And later on, as we train more developers, and this is something that we're discussing actively with our APU, we hope to have a developer training program. We also have an existing accelerator program for those of you who are more in the business line. Then there's so many ways to get involved. I would say that blockchain is incredibly like accessible to people from all walks of life. But we're going to talk about that part near the end of the presentation. So D apps, I think one of the best example is represented by GameFi. So if you guys know what is play to earn, so play to earn. I mean, if you have done an event on NFT, then you probably know what is kind of like play to earn. So play to earn games generate a lot of transaction. So normally, if you have one popular play to earn game on a single chain, it destroys like the experience for everyone else because it's just going to congest the entire blockchain. So you end up with very poor user experience. It may or may not be your fault. Because of the gas fee computation, you end up with very high transaction fees, and kind of like you lack other features like governance, so on and so forth. Okay, so so what is the purpose of Octopus, right? So as I said, we're not a blockchain. We're basically a protocol which helps connect app chains to near protocol. So what is the Octopus project about? Well, it's quite simple. We're here to actually remove bottlenecks, right? We want to lower the barrier to entry. Of course, we're built on near, so we want to grow the near ecosystem. We want to grow the developer community, which would where everyone would benefit from, and we want to support app chain projects, which again, the kind of support that we provide is very different from the kind of support that you get from elsewhere because we don't only look at the technical part. I mean, that's it's like essentially it's like, hey, if you're building a building, like you have to first you need the architect, right, to design the building for whatever purpose it's going to serve, right? Then you bring in the engineers, right, who's going to like, hey, decide on all the structural parts, right? So what we're saying is that a lot of projects, they focus on the engineers. They don't focus enough on the architects, and even more importantly, the architects are designing for a client, so the client has a purpose to serve. So that's how we see it. So we have a program for both entrepreneurs and also developers. So this is our tokenomics. I won't go too deep into this, but essentially we have an OCT token. So for tokens, I think it's quite a sensitive topic, but I would say that the reason why there's quite a high rate of failure is because people don't understand really what is the value creation process, value capture, and also how to generate network effect. For our ecosystem, is very simple. We stake OTC because the validators are using OCT tokens, and the app chains would give a reward in terms of the app chain tokens back to the token holder. So it's very, very simple tokenomics. Essentially, what it is the more OCT tokens are locked up, the better it is, in general for for the price because of the supply demand dynamics. So we focus a lot on getting app chains on board because we know that the more app chains we onboard, the more tokens will be locked up. And the best part is we do not have any limitation on the number of app chains, simply because we're built on near protocol and they have a fantastic sharding mechanism. Um, yeah, so this is kind of what it looks like. I don't think much attention needs to be paid to this. But yeah, if you're interested in the technical parts, I think I can make the slide available for you guys who are developers. But for the general public, I wouldn't focus too much on this slide. Now, this is an important project, right? So we actually have a very close relationship with Polkadot because the Octopus Project team members came from a company that is building cross-chain bridges, and they know a lot about bridges. So if you've heard of hacks, right, then over the last month, I think there's a $80 million hack, and there's another one that's 250 million US dollars. So by looking at that, and these involve very serious projects, by the way. So by looking at that, we all know that look, it's very difficult to build a secure bridge. Very, very difficult, right? There's different types. There's different ways of doing it, and every time you engage it, it's like, hey, do I want it to be fast, but less secure, or secure but so much slower, right? And there's a lot of design choice in between, and you also have to understand like the blockchains you're connecting to a really good level. So it's kind of like, hey, before everyone is just trying to link between cities, right? So for example, if you have Penang, Kuala Lumpur, and Johor Bahru, last time people were thinking like, hey, I just need a road between like Penang and Johor Bahru, Penang, KL, and Johor Bahru. That's it. I'm not thinking about the entire nation, what it needs. I'm not thinking about the national highway network, right? But as the country grows, then you sort of get to a point where you start to understand. It's like, hey, these two roads aren't going to work because there's so many like small towns that's the potential to grow, and they're all specialized in their own thing. You have like Port Klang, you have PJ, you have like all these different areas that you need to connect, and you actually need to have like a proper architecture. If you don't, then you're probably going to end up with something like what Kuala Lumpur looks like with all the highways. That's basically just trying to solve bottlenecks here and there, but they don't really have a sort of like a high level idea of what they're going to build. If you have like a properly designed highway system, then you can probably look at Singapore, where it's like, hey, every single highway makes sense. There's the CTE, the ECP or whatever, and everything is like there's actually a completion date. So what I'm saying is that the architecture is important. It's very difficult to build bridge by bridge. It is better to look at the entire architecture of what Web 3.0 can look like. So Polkadot has a lot of innovation. So what they have is basically they have two types of chains, right? So one is a relay chain, okay, and then the other one is called a parachain. So if you are a parachain and you have a certain application, let's say you want to focus on DeFi, then what you do is you enter into an auction for a slot, and this can cost like $1 billion. Like, you wouldn't believe it, $1 billion, right? And not only that, there's only 100 parachains. So realistically, how many people can get on? Now they try to solve it in a few ways. So they also have a sister chain called Kusama, where the barrier of entry is lower. But again, Kusama also has a 100 parachain limit. And at last count, a couple of months ago, we already know that there's more than 500 substrate projects. So we know that scalability issue, it's going to be a big issue, right? Of course, you can have parathreads, but parathreads is almost saying like, you don't have liveliness. Not every transaction gets posted on the relay chain. So there are some risks, and there are some performance issues that people cannot accept. But this is essentially what it is. So in the Polkadot ecosystem and also the Cosmos ecosystem, they believe that the hub, that means the relay chain, should be minimized as much as possible. Why should it be minimized? Well, because it serves a very important function, and this function is essentially to secure all the other chains and enable communication between all the other chains. So it has very heavy responsibility, kind of like our north-south highway, and these are like kind of like all the cities. Okay, But they do have something that they want to basically have is called composability. Uh, so that means that all these chains will act as if they're the apps on like Ethereum, for example, right? And then you can run DeFi protocols, in the various chains, and technically they'll be able to talk to each other. So this is what Polkadot is. I can go a little bit deeper, but I think there's no need. Now, the other major multi-chain network is called Cosmos. So Cosmos, and Polkadot started 3 4 years ago at least, because infrastructure projects are very difficult to build, and their idea is slightly different. They also have a version of Substrate. It's called Cosmos SDK. So if you use Cosmos SDK, it's very easy to launch your own blockchain, but it's very lightweight. So a lot of the functionality needs to be built out, and also the security is provided by their own chain. So in the Cosmos ecosystem, they call it zone. So these chains are called zones, just different terminology, but essentially it's just another blockchain. But they have something called a hub, and their idea is that, hey, blockchains that communicate a lot with each other can basically try to launch on the same hub, and then kind of like the how do you say, the transfer information. Let's say you want to go from this zone to this zone, will be two jumps instead of many jumps, right? If everyone just connected, without a hub. So that's kind of like the architecture that they imagine. So yeah, so Cosmos has something that is extremely valuable, and this is something called the IBC, inter-blockchain communication. So inter-blockchain is communication is important because, for example, in the internet world, we have something called TCP/IP, which is like a communication protocol. As long as you're on TCP/IP, I mean, it's what enables us to communicate over the internet so seamlessly. So they invented something called IBC, and this is absolutely brilliant because it is very complete, and it can support a lot of things. So not only you can like send messages, but you can also transfer value or even trigger smart contracts, right? So how are we related to these two projects, Polkadot and Cosmos? Is because our team received a grant for Cosmos to build a IBC palette for Substrate, which means that Substrate, all you need to do is incorporate that palette, and you'll be able to use IBC to communicate with Cosmos. So essentially, we are the team that is involved in connecting the two large multi-chain network together, and this is why we have a very deep level of understanding of what the multi-chain architecture is. But we also have our concerns because there are some bottlenecks that that emerge with these two models. So this is why we created something called the Octopus Project, and essentially we use existing technologies, right? So you have new protocol, which is a layer one, and it has composability, so we don't need to invent that. We have Substrate, which is a very complete, easy way to and very powerful way, because once you have a Substrate chain, you don't have to build everything by yourself. If people are building, let's say, a Dex palette, all you need to do is incorporate the Dex palette, and there you go. You have a Dex palette. If Octopus Network, has a app chain palette, all you need to do is incorporate that palette. So you see, it's kind of like modular, and just pick and choose from what other people invent. So that's why Substrate is super super powerful. But so we don't need to reinvent that, right? And it's probably better than Cosmos, which is more lightweight. Now, but the Cosmos technology has something called IBC. So we use IBC to facilitate the communication between the app chains and also Polkadot parachains, as you can see here, right? And yeah, it looks kind of confusing, but yeah, the internet blockchain is gonna be huge, and we actually see another pattern emerging later on, which we'll talk about. So okay, so IBC, when you have IBC, you can also connect to Cosmos Hub, like we shown before. All right. So that's how we innovate, and why do we also do this, right? Is because you only have 200, 100 each, right? Kusama and Polkadot. So there's a lot of substrate projects that don't actually have a way to connect. So we give them that opportunity to connect and build the community and launch their project. When they are successful, they can actually have a choice to disconnect from Octopus and go to Polkadot or Kusama, or it can be the other way around because Polkadot and Kusama runs on an auction, sort of like a time auction, right? Auction for like time slots. So it's not like you get a slot on Polkadot that you have it forever. You may have to rebid after 10 months, I think, on Kusama, or I think it's 2 years on Polkadot. But essentially, these things move around. So when you have an app chain in the future, you actually have the option to connect to various different type of multi-chain network. The other thing that we can do is we can actually support Cosmos SDK chain. So this is not something that we talk about, but as a single project, we are the one that can support the maximum amount of chains in the future. So yeah. So why Octopus? Well, lower the cost of barrier of entry. We also have least security. Lock-in period is less. We have stablecoin assets from near. Yeah, you can disconnect anytime. If your community have like sometimes it happens, right? If you guys have heard of forks, essentially it's like two groups of people that are in a community that decide not to be together anymore and they want to be like separate community. So this has happened with Ethereum, with Steemit and so many other blockchains. So we actually have the option for app chain community to actually fork, right? If significant amounts of the community is not happy. So we actually see this as a kind of like an innovation of blockchain because you don't really get that kind of situation anywhere else. But we think it's actually a feature, not a bug, and we want to enable it. So what we do is essentially we send data to be stored so that when the community wants to launch a separate app chain, they can do so. Okay, so any app chain that is connected would essentially have a representation of their token on near. It's called NEP 141. A little bit like ERC20 on Ethereum. We have services for developers like APR, RPC, Rainbow Bridge. Again, yeah, don't really want to go too deep into that. This is something that I want to touch on because it is a community managed instead of like company centralized managed, right? So the community becomes very, very important. And this is almost a topic that is very close to my heart because I've been building communities for many years now. Access is an association, but I have my own community on Facebook. It's called Crypto Malaysia. And yeah, and before that, I was part of another community which I helped build, but I was no longer part of, right? So all these things are very fascinating. It is inherently a big challenge because some people think of it as basically investor relation 2.0. So what does that mean? So if you have a listed company and you have shareholders, then you want to basically inform your shareholders like, hey, there's an AGM or we're doing certain things, so that these people will have some loyalty and also have faith and trust, and they might want to keep the stock longer. So it's almost like an evolution because we do have tokens and we do have people who invest in tokens. So it's kind of like investor relation, but if we call it investor relation, then it's actually I think it's inaccurate terminology, right? So crypto community is very special. So you have essentially core team members, you have like contractors, you have like ambassadors, you have like communities. I mean, you can have like subject matter experts from anywhere, and all of them can give input, right? So in actual fact, with what's happening with the internet of blockchain, everyone is being connected. It's so interesting. Everyone is being connected. So this is what a community looks like, and I just updated this today because there's so many changes, right? So for example, the Octopus community obviously is overlaps with the Cosmos community because we use IBC, right? And we also support Substrate, which means that we also have to appeal to sort of like, hey, the Substrate community, and we also have to do our part, right, and give back with the developer training. After the training, they can work for anyone. They don't have to work for Octopus. That's the best part. Obviously, we're a part of the Near community. A lot of we're considered a strategic project of Near Protocol, so we have a very, very close relationship. And Near Protocol is like, yeah, I don't know, 300 or 400 million US dollars of grants funds, right? So either they deploy it as grants, which is like 50,000 grants are very common. They talk to you 20 minutes, they give you $10,000, and the balance four is like split into four milestone. Yeah, and to like investments in your project, right? So these are something that Near Protocol is very strong in. I think they're like top 20, top 25 blockchain project. I think they're probably going to get very close to top 10. And then at the same time, we have support for Ethereum virtual machine, as you can see down here. So this is the Ethereum community, and as you know, Ethereum community, they can, because there's a lot of EVM compatible chains. So you have like BSC, you have like Polygon. It's like, hey, you can deploy on both of them, but you can also deploy on Aurora, which is an EVM environment on Near, and you can also deploy on an Octopus app chain because Octopus app chain comes with EVM. So literally now the argument is like, hey, why do you want to have why do you want to build on Polygon or Ethereum or BSC when you can have your own BSC, Ethereum or Polygon, and that's how powerful it is. So this is kind of like what it looks like. I think it's very, very confusing, but I just wanted to show you that how these technologies are overlapping, and because the technologies are overlapping, the community is also overlapping. So that's why we don't really practice any kind of maximalism, as in hey, my chain is better than yours, my technology is better than yours. It's not an argument that is productive. We think that if we focus on the problems that everyone is having, and we try to solve the bottlenecks for everyone, that's actually the best approach. And at the end of the day, we all know that Web 3.0 is going to come, but if it can come sooner rather than later, then that'll be fantastic, right? These are the communities. So we do have app chains. Only two are live at the moment, but we expect more to come. We want to have about 25 app chain this year. So it's going to be a very busy year for us. Near Protocol is our strategic investor, seed round strategic investor. There's some big ones that's not here. DCG and Electric is here as well. Ascensive Electric is here. D1 Ventures is a pretty major fund. We also have like Polkadot projects, Shanex and Staffy. They also support us. Essentially, our team is the development team is mostly in China, but the marketing team is like all over the world. Like we have I think half our team members are from the US, but also from Peru, from Russia, from Algeria, of course Malaysia, and Vietnam. Like all over the place, right? And that's how we think it should be done. So the first app chain is decentralized biomedical data, DBio. So what they do is actually they allow you to own your own genetic data. So if you have taken a genetic test before, you can upload this onto the network and you can get a second opinion on the marketplace. Second one is kind of Muse Network is pretty cool. They're a music NFT platform. I think they're still under development. We haven't heard from them too much lately. Myriad Social is already launched. So the idea of Myriad is when you have a separate decentralized social media, you have a problem because you're disconnected to all your friends. So the idea of Myriad is that you should be able to use Web3 platform, but you should also be able to keep in touch with all your friends on like Facebook or Twitter and all that. So what you do is you link your data, your accounts, and when you link your accounts, then basically you can still keep in touch with all your friends, but you have that layer. Now the next development for Myriad will be the ability to launch sort of like social apps on top of the chain. What do you mean by social apps? Well, if you look at for example, Tinder. Maybe I'm not giving very good examples like Tinder or maybe OnlyFans or so many other types of social media. So actually, all this can be built on top of the Web3. So instead of making a separate app, they can actually launch this on Myriad and just take advantage of all those people that's been onboarded. So I find this quite exciting. If you're into Web3 social media, do research it. Don't take my word for it. There's a lot of exciting projects out there with all different approach. But I think this one probably has a pretty good chance. So these are the case studies. There's many reasons. I can go through them. Since everyone is so familiar with social media, so I'm just going to read through this. So there's no central authority, empowers the users. So essentially, instead of Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg taking all this value, right, for his company and for his shareholders, the idea of Web3 is that you know uh, you create a token, right? But this token, what does it represent? It represents a unit of account in the economy. So instead of creating like this centralized company that may be listed or whatever, what you do is you do that in a way where you create this economy, right? And in this economy, you have to have value creation, you have to have value capture, you have to have network effects, which are some of the similarities, with the Web 2.0 system. But the Web 3.0 system, because it's more efficient, it should give back more value to the participant. So I can imagine that, if today, let's say Facebook was a decentralized project instead of this, very huge corporation that we see now, like, the wealth should actually be distributed, according to, hey, how many users you have and how active you are on Facebook. That's kind of like the general idea. So you can imagine how powerful the Web3, um, you know, the Web3 ideas, and basically you can, yeah, just use that line of thinking to look at everything else and see like, hey, what's possible out there that I can decentralize. So that's the best part. So why I'm telling you this is because when I tell you this, then you will have your own thoughts, and everybody has a different, a different point of view, a different knowledge base, right? And different abilities as well, So there's a lot of things that is out there that maybe no one else will see except you, So do bear that in mind. So these are concluding remarks, and I think that I'm under the scheduled time, so it's okay. So yeah, shift from Web 2 to Web 3 will be gradual, but the technology is here today. This is what I want to tell you guys. Um, so the concept of decentralized web, yes, needs to be understood by people, but it's better to show them a successful, application, such as, for example, Play to Earn has Axie Infinity, rather than explaining it to them, because that's how things work. Basically, all this value is derived from the automation of business logic. So, for example, if you're running a company, the biggest example is a crypto exchange, actually. So, when Uniswap, which is a decentralized exchange, they had 5 employees at that point in time. When they were doing more volume than Coinbase, which was the biggest exchange in the US, which has 1,000 employees. Can you imagine like how many times the efficiency they can achieve, right? Using automation. So smart contracts, blockchain, whether you want to code in native substrate or EVM, is business logic automation. That's what it is. This tech stack is maturing, but the user experience quite terrible at the moment. Like if I have to teach you to open a crypto wallet, you'll be discouraged. But for Near, it's so easy. So please do try to do that. Blockchain scalability, interoperability definitely needs improvements, and a lot of applications are actually not really decentralized. There are some decentralized portions, but again, a lot of it is still like on centralized servers. So yeah, but in the meantime, while the space is building, there's tremendous opportunity and rewards. Okay, and regulatory developments, I think everyone is following this every day. It's quite positive at the moment. So where are the opportunities, some of you may ask, since most of you are students and you're thinking about your future? Well, I work in a project, and we have so many things that is, I would say that it's like working for a startup where, every single day, depending on just what happens, how you want to develop, like new jobs are just coming up. But the first and foremost thing is like you got to get in, right? So there's business development. You can work for audit firms, you can work for venture capital. They also need like very good researchers. Yeah, you can be a tokenomic expert. I think that's a pretty tough area, because it falls in the realm of economics. You can do crypto taxes that exist already in the US. Usual stuff like marketing, community management, operations, support services. Like there's so many things that you can do. But for me, if I hire for Octopus Project, I prefer someone who's done the research and they know what they're getting into. The reason why is because it's very fast moving, and we practically don't have time to train anyone. So, what can you do to start today if this talk was interesting and you're convinced and want to do a little bit more and take the first step? Well, you can reach out to projects. Find a project that you like, try to reach out to them. They're mostly reachable on social media. You can join communities as well. I have my own community. There's a community in APU. Of course, do consider to join as a member. Do reach out to Mr. Suresh because he's the subject matter expert at APU. Do join conferences as well or events as well. So I would say this is probably not completely accurate. You can join smaller meetups and you can probably have more quality time. You can reach out to me. It's all open and decentralized. Please remember that. And one of the best ways that you can get in is through volunteering. So yeah, so a lot of people. I have a few friends who were successful in landing a job in this sector, but I have to tell you that my advice to them was just to volunteer. And once they get noticed, some of them, today they're earning a salary much more. Either it's a supplemental income, and they're like, getting more than their salary in their day job, or they totally like, just focus on blockchain because, yeah, a lot of projects are giving a lot of bonus and stuff like that. So remember that there's no real like a Web3 professional just yet. Even for me, a lot of my experience, right, from working in the oil and gas industry, I started like, let's see, 19 years ago. Yeah, so a lot of that experience has to be transferred over, but not everything applies. Yeah, but that's the challenge. That's what makes it fun. Is the major big step of the internet. The world's a mess, but I'm saying that look, there is a technology out there that can help the world, and perhaps even because of this very volatile times, is also a very it's almost like a, yeah, it works like a booster, right? It actually boosts the need for people to like just open their eyes and start looking for new things that can be applied. But the solution is all there. That's what I believe, and I hope you enjoyed this talk. And that's it for me. Thank you.
All right. So how about that, huh? All right. So yeah, thank you to Mr. Erding for the very interesting and thought-provoking talk. I'm sure that all of us here, learn a lot of new things about the multi-chain network and Octopus network as well specifically. And I think we need some time to actually digest, all those informations, right? So why don't we just have a 5 minutes short break right now, okay? And we are going to return at, let's say, nine
Nine
five.
five.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you who want to go to the washroom or have some light snacks, now is a good time to do so. Please be sure to return at around 9:05 for the second part of the talk session. See you later.
Right. So yeah, see you guys later. 5. All right, it's 9:05 p.m. right now. I believe
Yeah.
everyone should gotten back already. So yeah, so we just start our finally long-awaited AMA session.
Sure. So for fellow participants, please do feel free to drop any questions you have into the live chat, either on YouTube or on Facebook. And those questions we picked will appear on the screen for everyone to see. We would also like to point out that unfortunately, we couldn't take all the questions that appear here to be answered due to time constraints. Therefore, we will only be able to pick the ones that we found to be interesting and caught our attention. Thank you for your understanding and throw us with the best questions that you guys have.
All right, I would also like to mention again for the APU students, please make sure when you're dropping your questions, make sure to include your TP number so that we can easily contact you later on. So when you are eligible for the giveaway, the airdrop by Mr. Aaron himself. Yeah. So please make sure to put your TP number. We will contact you shortly, maybe tomorrow or the day after we have decided the winners for the giveaway. Right. So, Mr. Aaron, are you ready?
Oh, yes, I am. Thank you.
All right. So to start off the AM session, I would like to, begin this by asking questions from me. So I know that you've mentioned that the progression from Web 2.0 to 3.0 will be very slow but sure. But how long do you think it will take for us to completely move from Web 2.0 to 3.0? How many years do you think?
Hmm. That's a very good question, and I think that I think no one can really have an answer, but there is a study by Gartner, right, which is a very famous consultancy company, and there's something called a Gartner hype chart, and that chart is applied to all the new technologies, including like the internet or AI or or blockchain. Uh, and that hype cycle tends to look something like this, right? So it's like it goes like this, and then it goes down, and then over time, like it picks up on a steady pace. So yeah, I mean, just like this. So I think we're probably on the blockchain technology. We're probably here. So I think that if this trend continues, then sort of like yeah, I think within 3 to 5 years, I think people will have very, very good idea of what is Web3. This simple reason is that I think Web3 right now, if you just look at what's been happening over, let's say, last up until end of last year, right? You will see a lot of startups, right? But you don't see too many big companies jumping into the space. I think that Web3 would essentially involve a lot of the, currently, very, very large corporations. It will also involve, governments. It would involve, maybe, international bodies. I know that United Nations has been looking at this for a very long time, and they are looking at several solution. For example, for carbon credits. So I think everything would actually have to fall in line, right? But this has to be adopted by all these big organizations in order for it to be sort of like, hey, we've arrived at this juncture where we can say that the Web3 revolution has arrived. So for me, I think 3 years probably is a good 3 to 5 years probably roughly a good estimate. I'm based in Dubai, by the way. So in Dubai, they're doing a lot of things. If you guys have heard of Dubai Expo, they plan to turn the area into something called District 2020, and basically they want to attempt to create like a Silicon Valley. So and they also are very friendly to crypto, and probably you've heard that Binance is moving its headquarters here, and they're working with yeah, the Dubai government. Um, so there's a lot of things going on right now. It's very uncertain, but there's also, for example, Russia. After it was announced that they would have further economic sanction and cut off from the SWIFT, which is like an international system for transferring money between banks internationally, that they will actually turn to crypto. So this is very significant because prior to that, there was a country called El Salvador, which is great because as a nation state, they really jumped in on this Bitcoin thing. But I think it's actually more than Bitcoin. I think it's about the what we talk about just now, right? The technology, right? The transformative technology, right? Right, rather than just about a single cryptocurrency. But with Russia coming in, now you have a world superpower, right? That's literally on the UN Security Council. Is massive, it's so massive. I was afraid that there will be a adverse response from the White House, but even the announcement by the White House is saying that look, we recognize crypto now, and that we know it's going to stay. So you're going to see a lot of this happening now. What we know, the other thing to bear in mind is what we know now. Uh, it's only a fraction of what's going on. There's a lot of projects. There's a lot of people building projects that are still under stealth mode. We don't know who they are, what they're doing until they announce it. So I think if you look at the institutional investor, the flow of money, right, from very large, like billion-dollar funds, of course, they channel that money through vehicles, right, smaller vehicles that would essentially focus on a particular sector. There's people still raising money. There's institutional money still coming in. There's in fact too much money in this space right now, and there's very little that's being deployed. Because there's a bottleneck. Yeah, they couldn't find good enough researcher, and there's also a bottleneck on the project side because there isn't enough good projects, right? And why is there not enough good projects? Well, this is something that Octopus Networks want to solve. Yeah, so this is where we're at, and that's why I think that Web 3.0 will happen, because there is a need to, and because all the big stakeholders like around the world, I can confidently say, all of them, have been researching for many years. A lot have made the move. You can see even Facebook was rebranded to Meta. Even Facebook tried to launch Libra, right, but they failed. Um, so yeah, so these are the things that's happening that I think very few people like realize, right? Kind of like, hey, this is just like it's like an iceberg. So you only see like the tip of the iceberg, and you don't see like what's actually underneath. Kind of like, yeah, this is what I feel. Knowing what I know from my position.
All right. Thank you for the very comprehensive answer right there. All right. So you found any questions you
Yeah,
found a bit
sure.
interesting?
I actually found an interesting one because circling back to when Mr. Evan was talking about the decentralized social media application, the Myriad, right? There's a question from Hao Xiang here. If a social media platform is decentralized, who will be the ones to check on the contents that are uploaded by the users? And as content such as like NSFW content, how can it
Yeah.
be avoided from uploading? What would the complexity look like? Yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
So I think in the Myriad system, because you're basically you're creating a Web3 account, and you're connecting this to your Web2 account. You can also follow your friend's Web2 account, for example, right? But the how the system works is that you create your own experience, or you create your own group. So by moderating your own group, you can actually tweak the kind of content that you see. I think that's a very basic functionality right now, but I think in the future they need to basically have a almost like a Facebook type, like a group management, where you can put group rules. You can kick people out. For posting certain contents and whatnot. I think this would be quite important. As for like the just generally posting such content, it is extremely tricky because such a content may not be original. There's also copyright issues involved. And if since you guys have covered NFT, you also realize that hey, copyright is actually a pretty big issue in the NFT world, and no one has actually sufficiently addressed this, or even talk about it. People just think like I take a picture, it can be an NFT, and I can probably sell it for some money. But yes, there are a lot of issues, and there's a lot of laws that we have to follow, like GDPR, and every country has like different laws and stuff like that. So inherently, it is complex, but if you just take it from the point of view that look, you have an account where you're in charge of your data, and you control your interaction with other people, then and and since it's a decentralized network, then you're responsible for what you essentially see yourself. So that's going to be very tricky because we know that there's also issues related to, let's say, the age of a user. Of course, there's a lot of platform that actually does not allow users below 13. I think Facebook has that policy, but also you see some kids, right, also using the platform. You know, if Web 2 cannot control that, how can Web 3 control that? Kind of like, yeah, that's kind of like a big issue. But again, I think legally, I think the other issue would be like, hey, who's responsible, right? So I think Web 3 application, if yeah, if they have to be very careful on this. As much as possible, it needs to be decentralized, because if there's any point of centralization, then they are held responsible. So, for example, even moderation, if it's going to be implemented by the group, it certainly cannot be implemented by the platform itself. That will have to be defined by the moderators or admin of the group itself. And who will take the responsibility. You know, so it's a yeah, it's a very very complex question. I think. I think I don't have a sufficient information to actually answer in a better way. But just going from my experience, I think I mean, this is something that is plaguing Web 2 and Web 3, and people should be more clear. But overall, it's also very complex. There's a reason why there's no solution up to today. So if you for example look at the copyright law in Malaysia, technically you need to register with the local copyright authority. you know
Mm.
but people tend to fall back on the US, right? So for example, hey, if you are APU and there's another APU in the US, right, and this APU has been around since, I don't know, 1900s or something, then they can potentially say that, hey, APU, you're using my name and I want to sue you. I want to send you a lawyer's letter, right, because I existed first before you. But you're saying that, well, wait a minute, I'm kind of like in another country, and kind of like the name represent different things, and I'm not even offering the same services as you, right? So are you right or wrong? Well, yeah, I mean, if they can issue a lawyer's letter in the US and probably try to bring you to court there, then I don't know, maybe you feel threatened, and maybe you try to find some sort of settlement. So these things happen, but we're moving into a very complex territory, which I know nothing about. But yeah, I would say that there's a reason why this problem persists on social media. Either it's Web 2 or Web 3, it's all the same.
All right.
Okay. Thank you for the well thought out answer with really relevant examples. So, Edward, you can take the next question.
All right, so I found really intriguing questions here. I'm sure that most of the second year students on our university is also interested to hear about this. So Adeline Ong asks, which crypto and blockchain company you recommend for internship?
Well, that's a good question. Well, I would there's no such thing as an internship, right? As far as I know. Okay, so first you have to differentiate between the decentralized crypto project and the company. So sometimes people don't have a separate registration, so they just operate as a bunch of guys that start a decentralized project. That happens. But sometimes there's a company that's established in order to develop the decentralized project. So it's very important to actually differentiate, right, what the company does and what the decentralized project is all about. So some companies out there, they're like, for example, they provide a service, right, and they actually monetize part of, like, for example, if they create a blockchain, and this is, for example, enterprise blockchain. The blockchain itself will be free, and sort of anyone can just use it. But the company itself would have a revenue model, right, and they would charge for the services, to help you deploy on their blockchain or something like that. So I guess when you say company, you have to be very careful. Decentralized project and company is different, but the lines is quite blurred, right? Because sometimes some of the crypto projects, they establish company not because they want to be a company or they want to operate like a company, but because they're raising funds for venture capital, for example, right? But there is a differentiation there. But what's the best way to get in? I think if you look across, right, I've seen some of the job scope sort of like descriptions that people have put up. Because in my community, there's a lot of people doing projects themselves, active investors, like people who's been generally in the space for quite a number of years, 2 or 3 years, right? So I can't, I cannot say something that's untrue, because these people will get back to me very very quickly and say that, hey, you're wrong, but from what I see from the group, is that all of them basically require a basic knowledge of blockchain. So and a lot about, there's a something about Web3 that everybody have to understand. There's no such thing as like a Web3 professional. So that also means that when it comes to hiring for, let's say, Octopus Network, I find it very challenging because in the oil and gas industry, which I used to be in, we actually know who our competitors are. We know the managers. We even know some of the workers, and we know through contacts whether these are good performers or not. Like there's that, how do you say, that information is available. But when we take in people from Web3, they can come from all walks of life. It's a challenge. It takes time to know people. So that's why we institute something called the ambassador program. So if you're interested, you can apply for ambassador program with Octopus. But there's a lot of projects out there. There's a lot of projects out there that have ambassador program, and the ambassador program can vary between let's say, hey, you do this for free, but if you do some tasks for me, then you get some bonus. Or like the Octopus form is actually everybody gets something just because you're ambassador. But hey, if you want more rewards and all that, you have to execute like like a online meetup or offline meetup, or you help the Telegram moderation, stuff like that. Some of them are actually developers, and they were willing to go through that. And after a few months, we sort of understand that, hey, these are people who are active, who are passionate, because we can see the level of activity. We can also see that they're attending all the meetings, and we ask them questions, they're able to explain. So I actually got a call today, from a guy that's looking for a job. And this guy is actually experienced. He's actually in the banking industry, and as he's at least 5 years experience. So he's not just a fresh kid out of college kind of thing. But yeah, he wants to change industry, right? So I asked him, hey, can you explain what's the difference between Polkadot, Cosmos, and Octopus? And he couldn't answer. He said, like, yeah, I know Polkadot. Yes, I bought some coins. Yes, I know. Yeah, I know Cosmos. Like, but he doesn't know anything about the differences between this. So when you meet a situation like that, I think many companies would highly value people who actually put in some time, some elbow grease, right, to actually understand. And understanding is not that difficult, I think, if you find the right source and the explanation. Nobody has to be a technical expert, but you just sort of like need to understand like the key points, on a high level, so that when people talk to you, that you will understand what to do. So that's my tip. Like, yeah, but in terms of internship, maybe internship a little bit more difficult because there's less projects that want to present themselves as companies. But if you want to talk about ambassador, there's a lot, and you don't even have to like take time off your study. You can do it now. You know, I know several ambassadors are making very good money, and they're like, yeah, some of them are like, I want to do this full time. I was like, no, you better finish your study. Uh, that's probably more important, or else your mom is gonna come after me. Yeah. But anyway, very very long answer to your question.
Right. All right. So yeah, to all students, yeah, make sure to keep that in mind. Right, you this.
Okay. All right. So we have the next question is a little bit technical. It's from anonymous. So this person is asking, does Octopus has its own decentralized autonomous organization now? If not, what are the features are you going to include in the decentralized autonomous organization instead of basic ones like tokenization, voting, etc.? Yeah,
Okay,
that's the
it's a
question.
very good
Mm.
question actually. Yeah, so because we're not a blockchain, right? So we need to, as a decentralized project, we need to have our own DAO, right? And the token, because the token holders need to make some major decisions. So our DAO design right now is at the conceptual stage. We hope to roll one out by middle of the year. But right now, the reason why we're a bit behind on developing a DAO is because so far there's no success case in decentralized governance. Um, we talk about substrate having a DAO, and it's more powerful than a DAO on, let's say that's deployed on Ethereum, because you can control a lot of the functionalities, right? Even change the consensus, right? Of the blockchain. So it's so powerful in that sense. But actually, like, hey, has anyone really, you know, cracked the egg on, how DAOs can actually, represent the community? So if there's actually a video of Vitalik Buterin, and he talked about this governance trilemma, right? So if you give every single person one vote, then you're gonna have a bit of an issue because, for example, in Malaysia, a lot of vote buying goes on, and the reason for that is because they're not doing a lot, but because they're a citizen of Malaysia, they have a say, and because they're not doing a lot to contribute to that, they don't really care. If they can sell it for some cash, they will sell it for some cash. So you have a case where maybe 90% of the population is not contributing, but they have some say into, what goes on. And most of the time the say is like, give us more money, like, yeah, then the country can succeed as well, right? But then, how should you do it, right? Should people who contribute more get more say, you know? Yeah, and the other problem is that, hey, if it's one token, one vote, then what about the whales, because normally token distribution is highly uneven. It's almost like yeah, how it is in the blockchain space when it comes to information as well. What you get is you get a few people with a lot of information, and you get the majority with very little information whatsoever. And it's almost the same for token distributions, where a few people is holding a lot of tokens, and there's a lot of people that's holding very 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 little tokens. So if you do like one vote, kind of like one coin, one token, one vote, it doesn't work as well. If you want to, like, basically give them the say according to the amount of contribution that they're giving, then how do you solve that, right? How do you measure that? How do you get everyone to agree that is the case? So that's kind of like the big issue with DAOs at the moment. But to answer your question, I think it'd be very basic stuff like voting using token. We may use quadratic voting. Quadratic voting is meant to basically even out the power of whales. So, for example, if you have, like, 9 tokens, then you do a square root of 9, it becomes 3. So that your power doesn't increase like this. It's sort of like, yeah, it's more even, fairer to the smaller guys. So there are things like quadratic voting, which I think Snapshot has implemented as a feature. But still, yeah, we're very far away. So I think what we'll do is just a very basic form of DAO. As to what DAO is going to look like, this is a massive, massive innovation space where no one really has an answer. The some of the things that I want to look at actually is actually sort of like a DAO structure, right? So you can have a DAO with, like, other DAOs that's sort of like connected to it. That's an interesting structure, especially for a project like Octopus, because we're going to have so many DAOs out there. What if we can have a DAO that is kind of like, hey, where you can perform some basic things like having a say in how the protocol develops, or even there's another area where I'm super interested in, but no one has really solved. Is in the area of, like, giving back to the community, right? So, for example, if you're a corporate company, normally you would have a corporate social responsibility (CSR) program. So in the CSR program, you give back to the community, right? It's like you do charity work and all this, right? So actually, when crypto projects is like saying like, hey, we're community based, we want to give back to the community. But actually, if you compare the corporate companies, it's like, yeah, you don't have formal programs. There's, because you don't have the expertise. So what's going to happen? So hopefully we can have like a DAO structure. If maybe that's just my own idea. Of course, I need to check with the team and the founder what it's going to look like. But if we can have a DAO structure where some of that value generated is being sort of contributed to a DAO of DAO, and where this DAO can actually set up the mechanism to actually carry out the CSR program. So that means, for example, Uncle Kentang is doing a great thing, right? So what if we work directly with Uncle Kentang and say that, look, this is what we do. We want to give back to specific communities. You're one of the chosen ones. We're going to channel certain amount of funds to you. So all these projects do not need to set up their own CSR. Yeah. So for me, these are like some of the ideas that we can look at. I think it's very powerful, but I think at this moment we're at a very very early stage. There's a lot of ideas flying around in the DAO space. I know there's like even venture capital DAO of sort. We've seen quite a few of that. Yeah, but again, yeah, it's very very tricky. When it comes to like treasury management, is also quite a tricky subject. But I think if a DAO can have the power over treasury, I think it's a step in the right direction. But how exactly are you going to make sure that these funds are actually spent for what is spent on? How do you make sure that certain groups does not control too many votes, and they actually just making very useless proposals just to get some money out of the DAO, things like that. So it's kind of like, hey, blockchain is great because we enable like a whole new form of governance. But with the whole new form of governance, it's like, hey, you get a whole new set of problems that you need to solve. So that's kind of like the interesting bit. But yeah, I think we start off with something basic, but my hope is that it can efficiently serve some of the function, because if you look at like the DeFi example, so the why DeFi is powerful is like this, right? So if you have like, so DeFi is decentralized finance, by the way. So if you have like traditional banks, you would essentially have, like, hey, your ATM, you need to establish offices, you need to have like, checkbook issues or credit card issues. Like every single bank will need to actually, issue this or set up these services, right? But in DeFi, it's like, just one person needs to set this up, and everybody can use it. So it's kind of like, yeah, DAO, right? So what I think the perfect DAO would be the DAO that can enable a lot of people to access certain services, and not have to go through anyone else. I think that'll be kind of like, yeah, what would be useful.
Okay. Right. Okay. I hope that answered Anonymous's question. Due to the time constraint, I think we have to speed up the answers a bit. So I think Edward.
Yep. So yeah, I found a question by Mason Ray. You've met him earlier during our briefing session. He asked, "Is Web 3.0 company profitable? Because Web 3.0 seems like starting to restrict the tech companies to collect data from users."
Okay. So profitable, right? Profitable. I will put it in the term of Web3, right? Profitable means you're able to create like a positive reinforcing loop, right? That's what it is, because there's actually just three parts to it, right? There's a value creation, value capture, and network mechanism. So if your system is working correctly, you should be generating, and the network should be expanding, and that's it. There shouldn't be any profit, because they shouldn't be, right? But the owners, I mean the token holders, do sort of profit, if for example, there's real value creation other than speculation. If we take the speculation out, there's real value creation, and there's a good value capture mechanism. Yeah, and there's a network effect. So I'll give you the very simple example. Let's say you have a car. Okay, the car has an engine. The engine is you put in petrol, you give your input. The engine is your value creation mechanism. If it's operating properly, it should be able to generate power. Okay, now once that power is generated, you need to transfer that power to the wheels. So you have to go through your transmission, you have to go through your wheel axle, and then you make your wheels turn, and then the car will move. So is your value capture mechanism, yeah, operating properly? If it is, then you should be able to transfer 100% of the power from the engine to the wheels to move the car, right? It's simple as that. So that's what Web3 is. I would say that Web3 is very dangerous because of the example I gave you before. Uniswap have five employees, and they're doing the same volume, and they exceeded Coinbase in volume, which had 1,000 employees. So just do the math. 1,000 divided by five. That's how much times efficiency that you get. So it's very dangerous for people who's using the old model if the Web 3.0 application can be designed properly. And because, if let's say there is a case where it can be designed properly and it is working properly, can you imagine the amount of value that it's generating? We're not even talking about Facebook profits, man. It's nothing to do with that. It's on totally another level, you know. So yeah, that's the answer.
Okay, right.
Thank you.
The next question is from Panita Murugaya. How well are industries in Malaysia prepared to adopt the blockchain revolution? And how does the Malaysian legal framework support this technology since it involves tokenization?
Okay, so part of the benefit of being with Access is that we do engage with regulators, and we do have currently licensed exchanges. We are, I think, issuing a IEO license as well, which is the ability, basically a license to help company issue tokens. Okay, but you have to understand that the understanding of what is a token issuance and what these tokens are used for is very different from the corporate perspective compared to what we know today as a, like, let's say if you're a retail investor, you understand? Because for the corporate company, they have other forms of financing that's available to them. For example, we have like the ECF, so on and so forth. We have other means, right? And and anything they do should be under the so-called the framework or the regulation. But the challenge really is like, number one, I think we are a bit too slow in rolling out this so-called number one is defining. The research was slow. The definition of legal framework is slow. The rolling out of the licenses is slow. There were a lot of companies in Malaysia that was looking at this space even 5 6 years ago, but a lot of them have to go to Singapore to do it. And there was uncertainty because after that Singapore closed down. So a lot of you'd be surprised how many uh, companies in Malaysia today, especially with the NFT, very very simple concept to understand, right? NFT, right? Especially with NFT as a form of fundraising, but also as a also representing other things like exclusive memberships or so on and so forth. There's so many uses, right? So all this, I think people are avoiding tokens, and I think people are moving to NFT for this very reason. This is the trend that we're seeing right now. And as you can see, some like Red Hong Yi, she's a famous artist, and she's gone all out into crypto. Like we all can see it, and we have very famous companies in Malaysia already. Etherscan by Matthew Tan is Malaysian. CoinGecko by Bobby and TM Lee is Malaysian. There's a lot of Malaysians that's doing fantastic work within the space, but not really known. Not really known because we don't really want to be known, right? At some point in time, right? Because of all the uncertainty. But I would say that today everyone is ready. But remember, I'm going back to these points over and over and over again. You know, do they really know how to structure the value creation, the value capture? Do they really need? Do they understand? How to generate network effects? Because if they don't, the chances of them succeeding is actually quite low, and that is actually one of the main concerns of the Security Commission. Now, going back to corporate, how they see this as a, they see this as an alternative form of financing. So what it essentially means is that, hey, look, you know, why should I sell you my company share when I think my company is going to grow? So instead of financing, let's say, a plantation, right? I'm going to sell you trees. Each token can represent a tree, right? And well, if it doesn't work out, then maybe I'll just cut down the tree and send you a tree because that's what the token represents, you know. So you have to be very careful when it comes to, you know, yeah, what all this means, you know, because it's very unclear at the moment. But industries in Malaysia have a inherently big problem, and that is corporate financing. Corporate financiers are looking at space, really looking deeply in this space. A lot of negotiations are going, you know, behind doors. Okay, so how where are they? They're very prepared. I think the only risk is that they don't understand it properly. They may not implement a proper program, and the other thing is that they may be taking advantage of the ambiguity of the current legal framework, and that legal framework will evolve and will, you know, cover them at some point. So these are kind of like what's going on and what's stopping, you know, more industries in Malaysia to adopt blockchain.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so next up, we got a question from Hamza Omar. He said, "Hi, I study a master in accounting in forensic analysis. How does blockchain technology will contribute to the transparency of transaction, but also fraud detection found in an audit firm? Taking into consideration that the network problem all over the world is not stable, like Africa, Asia, Latin America, and etc."
Actually, two different question, Hamza. So the first one, the network problem is actually, you know, I mean, it's an issue all over the world, right? Sometimes my internet goes down in Malaysia or whichever country. It's not the issue. The issue is that the blockchain, if it's working properly, it should have you know, a lot of these so-called nodes, right? Or miners, right? That's you know, essentially securing the network, right? And in that sense, I think, you know, unless, you know, you have the ability to switch off the your entire network, for example, like Russia with a flip of a switch, or like China, you know, you can disconnect from like the world's internet, you know, kind of like, yeah, unless you're in that kind of position, then maybe, you know, it is a problem. But essentially, what will happen then is that the blockchain would probably split into two. So one would be in China, let's say if China is taken out, and one would be, you know, around the world. But when the blockchain reconciles, then the one that is, you know, has, like, yeah, you're talking about different consensus, but let's say if it's a proof of stake, then, you know, the longest chain wins, you know. So essentially that, you know, chain that is being built in China while it's being disconnected would, you know, be irrelevant. Yeah, but it's a bit too technical. You don't have to. I don't think we have to talk about that. Now, in terms of transparency or transaction, I think yeah, you have to bear in mind that the Bitcoin blockchain uses something called UTXO, right? Uh, which is an unspent transaction output, right? So unspent transaction output, the way it works is almost like cash. So, you know, imagine that if I have $10, 10 ringgit, but maybe I need to pay Suresh, you know, 3 ringgit, for example, right? So essentially, I will split that $10 into two parts, right? So one is, you know, 3 ringgit, one is 7 ringgit, right? And once, yeah, this Suresh, maybe he gets his money, then he might want to pay someone else like 1 ringgit, right? And yeah, and he pays that someone 1 ringgit. He has 2 ringgit left. Yeah, and that person with 1 ringgit say, "Ah, I want to spend 10 cents, you know, buy gula gula at some shop or something, you know." Then yeah, so what you get is like a, you know, fully, you know, transparent and traceable transaction. Yeah. So even so, I can actually determine, right? If let's say there's a big hack and there's a scammer, right? And this hacker just took a bunch of money into this wallet, like that wallet can be blacklisted on the blockchain. And as much as possible, I do not want to receive anything from that wallet, because if I do, like I may be, you know, sort of implicated, right, in this scam, right? So blockchain analysis is something that is already been going on a long time, but it's not supporting as many blockchains as they like. They only support the major ones, and the reason why is because a lot of it is you know, is number one, I think, is to track down you know, stolen funds, right, or money from scammers and all this kind of money, right, which is not welcome in the system. So there's a company called Chain Analysis. So if you are interested, then you should yeah, maybe reach out to them since you're doing a master's. But yeah, Then there's Ethereum kind of like accounting system, which is slightly different than Bitcoin. So they actually use accounts, right? So yeah, so it's a different form from UTXO that Bitcoin is using. So I would say that in terms of analyzing blockchain, like you essentially need to set up like listener nodes to listen to all the transactions coming in, and collect this data. And you also need to present the data in a way that is relevant. So, for example, I used to represent a Taiwanese blockchain analysis company. So they showed me the backend, and kind of like how it works. So they come up with something like 76 money laundering patterns. So you have, a few patterns, right? The basic one is like, one big account, you split to smaller accounts. Even you have accounts where, the chains are linking, into one big circle. Like there's about 76 money laundering patterns. The last time I spoke to them, but I haven't spoken to them for a year. So if these are the kind of things that you're interested in, like do reach out to them. But because there's resource involved in collecting the data, interpreting the data, and also it takes time. So for example, in money laundering, I think normally they check about five or six layers, right? So that means you want to check 5 to 6 transaction before 5 to 6 transaction. They say layers lah, because there's many transactions involved. From a single wallet, you can have a lot of transactions coming in and a lot of transactions going out. So about 5 is kind of like requires significant computing power. So kind of like, yeah, it takes time, man. It takes time. If the whole world moves to blockchain, trust me, this system will be in place before anyone can accept. And I know that they're tracing some blockchains. Um, Definitely, Omni with Tether. Yeah, definitely Bitcoin, definitely Ethereum. There's two more. I can't really remember, so I won't mention it. But it takes time and resource to actually, yeah. So I would say probably the newer chains probably won't have this. But yeah, very much. You should study it. You should really study this if you're really interested in blockchain technology. And yeah, do reach out to these firms, especially chain analysis. Just read everything they put out. Try to reach a team member and talk to them.
Okay.
All right.
So the next question is from Lee Mingzui. Lee Mingzui. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrongly. His question is, Andre Cron recently said he won't continue on the development of his projects because he feels that being a developer in decentralized finance is unpleasant. What do you make of his opinion?
Yeah, that's very tricky. So one of the things that I'm quite glad I didn't really pursue is actually DeFi. I followed DeFi very early on, like with Wi-Fi and stuff. I also made a bit of money there, but in general, I didn't follow too much on DeFi after I joined Octopus because in our protocol we focus on non-DeFi protocols. Because all the DeFi we push, I mean, it just needs to be hosted on new protocol because it has composability, right, and it's fast. It's a fast finality. But they do need to build the DeFi ecosystem. But I'll say that Andre Cronje is a very special guy. I mean, just from the little that I know about him, I don't know him personally, so don't do take what I say with a grain of salt. But he's a guy that is very much admired, right? Because he didn't even start with his project like, hey, I'm going to make this in a project. I'm going to raise a lot of money. He essentially created a tool that helps himself basically manage things better. And things were getting a bit more complex. And yeah, he got sucked into it. And yeah, he launched a token that weren't supposed to be worth anything, but somehow it is. And yeah, I mean, he's an innovator. So for an innovator to actually give up on a project, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. I think a lot of it has to do with kind of like the problems that everyone encounters, right? Because the system that we're building is not perfect. Like you can see there's so many. I mean, like if you're investing in this space, you will know all these terms. If you have not, you wouldn't. But don't bother with it. But essentially, there's like rug pulls. There's devs that have their code audited, but they push out another version of the code. That has a backdoor. There's so many things going on in DeFi. You know, and man, I can imagine. Like over time, it builds up, And I think in general, he's probably a person that wants to do good, but I think that the burden may be too heavy. And also, I think DeFi will be regulated. This is the other thing that I think about it. I think DeFi will be regulated. I think the financial institution would love DeFi actually, um, because it's just more efficient way of doing things. So I don't think they'll turn down technology, but normally what they do is they will leverage technology to make more profit. So I think DeFi, and also there's something called FATF, which is financing against anti-terrorist financing, right? So this is kind of like international guideline that countries should follow. So that at the very base includes AML KYC. It's something that I think most DeFi protocol, obviously some are trying, but in general, nobody uses it. As long as you have an Ethereum wallet, you can invest in these protocols and make your yield. So there was yeah, a lot of stuff that went on. I think over time probably is too much burden for him. And I don't think he really set out to be famous. He doesn't want to be famous. He's that kind of guy. Yeah, so I think yeah, if he disappears, it's totally fine because he already made his contribution. Even Satoshi Nakamoto was actually very smart because if Satoshi was a person that was known, then there's so many reasons, right? Just being human, that you may not like this guy, right? Maybe because of his religion or the country he's from or the color of his skin. Like people are so judgmental. So I would actually hate it. I do have friends that's really really like they adopt. I mean, they're libertarians, so they believe in these things. I do believe in it a lot. But I would say that yeah, sometimes people make a decision, and sometimes that decision may not be bad for the space, or may not be bad for him. So this is kind of like what I hope to see. But the next generation of DeFi, 100% is coming, guys. If you are playing DeFi, if you're playing a big game in DeFi, I would say probably leave it to the professionals. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we're almost reaching towards the end of the session, so let's pick up the pace a little bit. Our next question is from Nicholas Wong, our future club president, actually. He asked, he said, I heard multi-chain is more vulnerable to hackers, and as you said, we can have a slower but safer transaction or a faster but higher risk transaction. How can we overcome this problem while keeping it safe?
Well, it's not multi-chain that's vulnerable. It's just building bridges between chain one, let's say one chain to another chain. So yeah, because every chain is different, so you need a different construction, and there's different design choices. So the solution is already there. It's called IBC. So in order to communicate between blockchain, all you need to do is implement IBC, so you can have a communication protocol to talk to other chains. Yeah, and you can also have value transfer, and it's much safer if everyone is using the same standard. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and then another question is from Verse Blast. Web 3.0 is said to be giving information ownership, such as Marriott. Won't the creators get the information, such as the conversations? If not, a lot of illegal planning can be done.
Yeah, I mean there's already a lot of illegal planning, right? You want to say done over WhatsApp. If you look at how our politicians and some Petronas directors are being caught, they're caught using WhatsApp evidence. Yeah, and no matter what they say about encrypted communication, if you're not in control of private key, you don't control anything. Uh, I mean, do you see a private key in your WhatsApp? You may see a private key in the WhatsApp, but is this private key also available on the server to someone else? So it's kind of like, hey, what do you mean? Like, yeah, if let's say you have a secure channel, there's already messengers such as what they call that Signal, right? So if you want to be super confidential, and let's say, I don't know, maybe you're doing something bad with a group of people or with another friend, like you just use Signal, and that's it. It's supposed to be confidential. It's supposed to be encrypted. So it's not an issue. Some people think privacy is a right, a basic human right. But regardless, it's not as simple as that. Like people, I think from like some of the, I think there was a big hack that was solved, right? I don't know, it's a couple of $1 billion, right? So these guys were on a run for literally years. after the hack, and somehow people caught up to them because on the internet you leave a lot of traces. It's not only like, hey, like your information, like, is it like encrypted or not? It's like, hey, your IP address, hey, like your pattern, your usage, kind of like there's so many ways to pin you down. So I don't think it's a big issue because I think like law enforcement and all that, they have access to all these tools. So yeah. um would you want to uh, own your own information or not? I think that's kind of like the key thing that we should focus on. Should you own the information that is, basically, how to say, yeah, basically the result of your conversation with somebody? That could actually depend on your local country law. So, for example, in Dubai, I found out it's quite strange to me, but I'm not allowed to record a conversation, a video call conversation, um, with another person. I'm not allowed to do that. You see, and I have Zoom calls with a lot of people. I sometimes see this so-called hey, this conversation is being recorded. Are you okay with it? Most of the time, I just say okay. I don't even check where they are from. But these are the kind of things that exist, and I think that if you want to do illegal planning, then you don't actually need Web3 to do that. It already exists. But if you want to have control of your information and be involved in a new economy where you give back more value to the people that's actually generating that value, yeah, I think that's what it's actually for.
All right. So next question is from Sean Hang. He said, "Hi, I'm very intrigued by what the Octopus Network does now, and I'm curious on the roadmap for the future of Octopus Network and the future applications as well."
Awesome, awesome. Yeah. So Octopus Network is very special because we not only give support to substrate chains, but also Cosmos SDK chains. So as a single network, we support the maximum number of like chains. We have unlimited scalability. It's super cheap and easy to launch on our platform. In fact, because we have EVM support, a lot of developers, all they need to do is port over their Ethereum D app onto the chain. If they don't know how to launch a chain, we actually have service providers that can provide that for them. But obviously, we hope that in the future they would have in-house expertise for Rust and Substrate. We also have a launch pipeline, and this launch pipeline is takes only 8 weeks. Typically, projects raise between 2 to 3 million US dollars, which may not be too big for a lot of projects, but yeah, I mean, for projects based in Malaysia, Southeast Asia, is more than enough. You can imagine having access to 10 million ringgit budget, right? It's something that is quite normal for us. Also, we have an accelerator program. So every year we're giving away 1 million US dollars. So we have four cohorts. So 4 times a year we have a so-called this accelerator program cohort. So you can compete in it. You can set up a team with your friends. It can be an idea, just an idea, a pitch deck, but you do need a team and if possible a website so it looks respectable at least, and you can join, and over the course you're going to learn a lot of things. You're going to learn about community building, marketing, fundraising. Like, you learn all this stuff on our accelerator program, which only lasts like 4 weeks, and then the last 2 weeks you prepare for your pitch. And if you win, you win 50,000 US dollars just like that. Oh, no conditions. Of course, we hope that you become an Octopus app chain, but again, this is kind of like your decision. And we also have developer training. So the developer training is something that I'm discussing with APU, and hopefully that will be able to run sometime in the near future. In terms of technical ability, I think the majority is there. Only that we hope that we can have a DAO sometime middle of this year, and we also hope that we can have a IBC link to EVM compatible chains. That means using IBC, they'll be able to link to Ethereum, BSC, and Polygon. Yeah. So once that happens, then it's actually very interesting because you can have a chain, and this chain only needs one hop to every other blockchain, and this is what we imagine is going to happen to the future. One communication protocol, maybe two or three, sort of popular development framework, but one communication protocol, and every blockchain will be able to talk to every other blockchain, kind of like how the internet is structured. Yeah. So this is what Octopus is. We solve a lot of bottlenecks for everyone. When we train devs, the entire space benefits. When we have accelerator program, all these projects benefit because there's a information asymmetry like within the space. Like the people who knows a lot not going to give the advice for free, right? So we're giving that advice for free. We don't expect anything in return. That's why there's so many projects that look for us, and sometimes they don't onboard to Octopus. Is totally fine. But I do have a lot of projects looking for me in various stages, having certain problems, and as much as possible, I try to solve the problem for them. But of course, yeah. So if you have an idea, get a team together, put it down on paper. Don't be afraid to apply for the accelerator program at Octopus. That's where you should go first, uh, because there's a lot of things that you will learn, right? And it's better that you go through that process. And once you've gone through that process, if you're feeling confident, still feeling confident about it, and maybe probably done some tweaks, you can always look for me, and we can always have a conversation about, hey, how do I actually get this done? Because we help a lot of projects. I know, yeah, I can be of help.
Okay. Right. We have just one last question, and let's keep it under 5 minutes. This question is from Tae Yi Xiang. He asks, if another blockchain came up with an amazing interchain communication solution, will Octopus Network leverage their technology such as you guys did with Substrate and IBC? Will a hard fork be needed?
Oh no, there's no need for a hard fork. So because we're not a blockchain, we actually don't actually have a hard fork. All we need to do is we if this interchain communication protocol, right, is a good one, a major improvement over IBC. What we can do is we can approach them and we can propose a collaboration. You see, we have another collaboration that we didn't mention. So we have a collaboration with A Star Shiden, which is a Polkadot project, and they want us to build a bridge to Cosmos, to Immutable X. So every quarter, I think we have a capacity for one strategic project. So we are very willing to build bridges, yeah, for anyone. But the key is that not everyone can do this project. You see, the reason why we're not so concerned is because we're at the infrastructure layer. Okay, then you have like sort of like the middleware, and then you have like the applications. So the applications, they iterate very fast. That's why, like, if you say NFT marketplace, boom, suddenly there's like 1,000 NFT marketplace within 6 months. But when you talk about inter blockchain communication protocol, you know, I don't see another one on the horizon so far. And it's been years and years and years of development. It's not easy to execute. So yeah, so this is the kind of project that we are. But we would definitely consider any amazing technology, any interesting blockchain project that wants to work with us. We will definitely consider. The only challenge is like if they really have an unconventional system. Like for example, ICP is quite good, but ICP is like based on data center, and they're like it's not really blockchain. So yeah, we do have challenges like that where we cannot collaborate. But in general, yes, if they're good, we want to talk to them. We want to work together with them, and we want to solve the bottleneck. And also from our marketing, it's very easy. What we do is we inform people what we are. All the people, especially developers and entrepreneurs, before they build the project, they should have all the information available so that they can make the best decision. And that's our stance basically. Yeah.
All right. I think this is a good time to end the AMS session now. We actually passed our actual schedule, but that's fine. It happens, right? We've gotten to actually ask so many questions, and I believe that so many questions have been asked, and I think we already like bring up so many interesting topics. So thank you again. We highly appreciate Mr. Arenting for the very wonderful talk and sharing his thoughts earlier. So now we are going to move to our next section, which is the membership and feedback section. Yep. Right.
All right. Okay,
Um,
so
we-
okay, so moving on, we would like to inform and encourage all participants to fill in the feedback form by scanning the QR code shown on the screen or clicking on the link provided in the chat box so that our club could improve our activities and its overall process. Then, those APU students who fill in the feedback form will be able to obtain certificates from us. We will be sending the certificates to your respective TP emails as soon as possible after this event. For those APU students who are interested in attending similar events like this one, please do also fill out the member registration form by scanning the QR code shown on the screen, as we'll be having more insightful talk sessions like this covering wide arrays of topics regarding fintech in the near future.
all right, so we are now going to give a few minutes for you guys to scan these codes. Maybe 3 minutes will be enough, right? Okay.
Yeah, it should be enough. Yeah.
So, right. All right, I think that should be enough time.
Yeah.
Also, for further information and questions about our club, you can also follow our various social media accounts here, show in the screen right here. We do have everything. We have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. To follow us there to keep updated with our club's news and updates about our upcoming activities. Okay. So now we have to say that we have the event. We have to bring the close to the event as much as we don't want to.
Yeah. It was a really
So
interesting one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So to conclude, I would like to offer our biggest gratitude to Mr. Aaron Agret for the very insightful talk that he brings to us tonight. And of course, thank you to all of the audience, all right, who took the time to come for today's events. And I'll be seeing you guys later. I'll be seeing you guys in our next upcoming event. All right.
Right.
So
You guys.
goodbye. Goodbye,
Bye.
everyone.
Goodbye. Have a good night. Goodbye. Some of them.